In the 1950s, the average 21-year-old was married, had a house of their own, and was taking care of their first child. With advances in technology, society, birth control, and many other factors, people are starting up adult-related things later and later in life. The theme of this generation is that the 30s are the new 20s, and our 20s are supposed to be spent figuring out who we are, exploring all of our options so as not to miss out on anything, and enjoying a decade of carefree party lifestyle. We're led to believe that the 20-something years don't matter. The defining decade argues that the 20s do matter, and if we don't take some planning and action into account, we'll be left scrambling and likely as failures when we enter into our 30s. Where even though we can have some self-discovery, travel, and leisure, we also need to be gaining confidence and skills, getting our career started, and not randomly dating losers thinking eventually we'll land someone of quality. The defining decade talks about how the 20s is the period of adulthood where it is easiest to set up the lives that we're going to want, and where we have to get moving on having a plan set in place. With the timing of our 20s, we still have responsibilities and our minds are still very plastic, with the ability to pick up new skills and behaviors quickly. Written by Dr. Meg Jay, a clinical psychologist in Virginia, the defining decade gives numerous examples from the author's private meetings with young adults in their 20s. The book is split into 3 parts that 20-somethings will generally want to get handled: work, relationships, body and mind. So let's cover them now. Work. Although it's easy to get that job at the bowling alley with your friends, or settle in as a barista at Starbucks, we should really get moving on developing identity capital. This means that we need to have a job that may make us a little nervous and uncomfortable, be able to have potential for growth, be related to where we want to end up in our careers, and have you developing interesting skills that will help make you more valuable in a responsible job, or have you learning skills that will be essential for creating your own business in the future. If you look at your family and friends you hang out with the most, they'll often have a lot of the same hobbies, opinions, and thoughts as you, which is where the saying, "you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most," comes from. Using the strength of weak ties means getting into contact with people who you only know as an acquaintance that have connections with what you want to do. Because they have a different life set up than you and your buddies, they'll be able to help you out a lot more than your strong ties. Everyone appears to have their lives together on Facebook, but you shouldn't forget that those are the lives people choose to display, not their self-doubts and struggles. So don't judge yourself on what you see from others, and get hustling on a plan for your work life that you'll thank yourself for in the future. Relationships. People are marrying later and later today, and there's a stigma that you can't plan for your marriage and having kids like you plan for buying a house and setting up your career. Nowadays, people in their 20s are playing musical chairs with who they date, and when they hit 30, it's like they're choosing whoever is closest to them and getting married. The author goes into detail about how you shouldn't just randomly date everyone and see who sticks, but should really figure out what type of person you want to be with in the future and get to work on finding that person. When people try to test the seriousness and validity of a relationship, what's the first thing they do? "We're moving in together!" Many 20-somethings today just throw themselves into a living situation with a partner, not taking into account that it may be difficult to leave, and it's not just as simple as breaking up when you're cohabitating in the same place. The book says living together is not a microcosm of marriage, and it's a much better test of compatibility to go traveling with a potential spouse, where you two pool money together, go on adventures you wouldn't attempt alone, experience new things together, and then you can figure out in a much shorter period of time if this is someone you really want to start planning a future with. Many people have fun not planning a relationship and just doing whatever, until they hit 30, and then it quickly turns into a race against time. So figure out what you want before it comes time to set off the first Tinder date that goes reasonably well. Body and mind. The final portion of the book focuses on our minds and bodies, specifically that our frontal cortexes are still developing, and our 20s is our last chance to really absorb new information and learn quickly. We need to plan for the future and acquire skills that will help us in our 30s and 40s. This final portion also talks a lot about how our ability to produce children rapidly decreases as we get older, and females are most fertile in their mid to late 20s. After that, they're only half as fertile at 30, a quarter as fertile at 35, and an eighth as fertile when you get to your 40s. The 20s is our chance to join the adult world, make friends and relationships, go on adventures, and develop confidence. But we should also plan for our futures by stepping out of our comfort zone and not just going with the flow. We should take some active efforts to figure out where we want to end up, and then take the requisite steps to get there. In conclusion, although most media these days is telling us that our 20s don't count and that everything will work out okay for us in the end, this book is letting us know it's time to get moving on our careers, our relationships, and our baby making. We don't necessarily need to get all these in full swing, but we do need to have some reasonable plans in place so we aren't caught off guard and regretting it in our 30s and beyond.